Hey y'all, producer Drew here. We have an incredibly talented staff here at the CMA. On this podcast, you've met quite a few of them, but I wanted to give you all the opportunity to get to know one a little better. We brought Jackie Palmieri on to talk about her work with Amanda McCaver's latest exhibition, but I couldn't resist the opportunity to ask her some more questions about her role here at the museum and some of the work she's helping support in arts education. So I hope you all will enjoy this extended interview with Jackie Palmieri. Let's start the show. Hey y'all, producer Drew here. I am so excited because today I get to bring on a special guest who's not only a good friend of mine, but like such an asset to this museum and all that she does. She's only been here for a couple of years, but has made a huge impact along the way. I want to introduce all of you to Jackie Palmieri. I'm saying that right?
This is close enough. The Americanized version, we just say Palmieri. It's probably something more like Palmieri or something like that. I don't know.
Jackie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you made it here to the museum? Because I know you've actually been all over the U.S. and done quite a few different things. So.
Yeah. Columbia was kind of just an accident. It was really, I came to the museum in the middle of COVID as just kind of a holdover. Like, man, I got, my freelance. Nobody was spending any money. There was no graphic design. There was no art commissions. So I was like, man, like I just need something to kind of pay the bills. And then I saw they were hiring gallery attendants, and I was like, "You're gonna pay me to just stand around an art museum all day long?" Absolutely, best job ever. I get free admission to a museum, and I get paid for it. And so I just took that job and started meeting the people here, and kind of liked it, and decided to stay.
It's true. Jackie used to tell me not to touch things, and now she has been involved in the touch tours.
And now I literally tell people, touch this.
Yeah.
With gloves.
That's true. But you have been doing a lot of things to help us have more materials that we can touch without gloves too, right? You've been doing all that 3D printing recently. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I don't know that they knew that they were doing these projects when they hired me. But in a previous life, I did graphic design, so I know vector, and then a little bit of CAD and kind of industrial design type things. So wasn't super great at Blender, but it was a natural enough segue. And originally the 3D printers, I believe the grant was for accessibility, but like long distance. So kids or schools that don't have the money to come into a big city to see a museum would never get to see what these pieces look like in the round. So we could print off 3D models. Now, when the grant was applied for, I don't think they realized how tricky getting a 3D model of a piece that you own that doesn't already exist in the 3D printable realm, how difficult that was going to be. So, but I mean, that was fun. I got to learn about photogrammetry software and test print things. And yeah, now I can just go up into the galleries and scan things and print them. It's awesome.
What kind of challenges did you face with that? Because I know that I little peek behind the curtain for our listeners. I am a huge nerd, and everyone knows that. And I spent a lot of time talking to Jackie about this project because it is personally to me very fascinating in the amount of trial and error that it requires. I don't think a lot of people will realize that when they see the final product. But I know that you had to do multiple iterations of a lot of these. Could you talk a little bit about like some of the things you learned along the way? Yeah.
So I guess I'll start from the beginning. Just getting anything remotely 3D model-ish required us somehow taking a piece in the real world and making it into a piece in the digital world. Normally what you would do is either you'd have a massive studio that kind of looks like the Globe in Epcot, but it's all cameras and all perfectly lit, and then you'd set all those cameras off at the same time. That would be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Second best is they have these kind of like photo laser cameras that essentially does what our eyes do. It kind of perceives the depth, but it does it with lasers. those are about $40,000, which is not our budget. So the next best thing that I found was a lot of our digital cameras are actually fairly sophisticated. And, you know, if you've got an Android or Apple, they have portrait mode. So it can kind of smart detect, oh, you're definitely the foreground and you're definitely the feature. So I'm going to kind of block out the rest. So that type of software, the fact that that information is embedded in any given digital photograph, if I take hundreds of photographs and put it into a computer program, it will kind of be like, okay, this is the thing that she's taking a photo of, and isolate it and kind of guess, like stitch it all together and kind of guess what I was looking at. Now, it's not smart like a human, so it doesn't know, oh, this is the marble statue of Salas. It's just like, she keeps kind of taking pictures of this color, this texture, this depth away. So you got the curatorial crew up there to take things out of the glass. And I walked around it a million times, taking photos and photos and photos. And then we'd have to sit there for 15 minutes while I processed it to make sure that, you know, Salas didn't have like a hole in her face or something like that. There were a couple of really bad ones where the chair kind of looked like Swiss cheese or something. And I was like, okay, I got to rescan this.
Have you seen, DALL-E, like the new smart image building technology?
Yeah.
So were you getting things that kind of turned out like that?
Oh, yeah.
Half of the face was just this horrific melted.
And that happened in multiple stages of the process. Like maybe I got a good scan, but then I'd pull it into like the 3D software and I'd be like, ooh, what happened there? And then sometimes in the printer, like all of a sudden it would all look good. And then you'd go to print it and something would go wrong. And I've definitely got like a weird Salvador Dali camel that I'm keeping, and I love him, and he was definitely a misprint.
Our mistakes can be our greatest triumphs.
Right? I mean, we all grew up with Bob Ross. It's the happy accidents, right?
I'm a little younger than you. I did not grow up with Bob Ross.
Okay. Oh,
I grew up with the memory of Bob Ross.
Babies. I'm surrounded by babies.
So you do a lot here. We've all like taken on our fair share of special projects over the years. One of the ones you recently just finished up is really exciting. And it's really part of the reason I brought you in here today was to talk about the work you did with Amanda McCaver's new installation. Could you tell me kind of how you got involved in that and what your role was during the installation?
Yeah, I'm not super sure how I got involved. When I applied for this job and they were asking me what I had done in the past, my last employer was an artist named Michael Sherrill, and we did a little bit of everything, a little bit of production, a little bit of home repair and construction and like yard work, and also like, of course, like glass and metal and ceramics. So they knew that I had a studio art background and they knew that I'd worked with art and with artists. So I think that they were like, well, we're going to need extra hands. Why don't we bring in the person who's literally done this before? But specifically, it wasn't just you're going to be assisting the curatorial staff. They asked me to, Amanda, apparently everywhere she goes for this specific piece, is like, I'm going to need a lot of hands. So whether that's staff or volunteers, bring them in. And she's one of the artists that's very, very interested in bringing in volunteers, people who aren't necessarily, museum trained, curators, preparators, which I think is awesome. Like,
well, it's super rare, right? Like you don't meet a lot of contemporary artists that want a lot of meddling from the outside. We've had a lot of artists come in here that really required no interruptions whatsoever, and from what I've seen, Amanda was very much the opposite of that in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah. I mean, artists and musicians or whatever, like when you're getting into your zone, and especially like if it's an installation, a lot of times the artists kind of want this space and this kind of like zen and this quiet to just make sure everything's right. Even if they want you to interact with the art when it's up, the putting it up, a lot of times they can be very protective. But Amanda is an absolute sweetheart. If you guys haven't met her or haven't watched any of her lectures, she is such just a sweet, open, bright personality. And yeah, I was personally just really excited to meet her, to get to work with her. As someone in the fine craft world, I've kind of been following her on Instagram and the different art journals and things like that. And it was just really cool to meet this human who seems like a really sweet, down-to-earth person, and she was. But yeah, so I was in charge of bringing in volunteers. And I was excited at the idea of bringing in people. I mean, obviously, I'm looking at people that would actually be helpful to Amanda. But trying to bring in people from the community that would be as excited as I was to work with Amanda. So trying to reach out to local art groups. And I mean, I'm new to the area, so I don't know. And everywhere I turn, I find more art groups in Columbia, which is awesome. So if you're listening to this and you didn't get an invite, I'm so sorry. Email me so that we can collaborate in the future. But yeah, reached out to different people. I have a neighbor up the road who has stuff on her yard and her porch, and she just, like, obviously is an artist. And then I found out their name is Flavia. And I was like, that person is going to want to meet Amanda, is going to be helpful to Amanda. Like, I need her to come into the museum.
That's funny. I knew that was Flavia. I hadn't seen her in forever, and I recognized her from a distance, and I was like, I'm like, why do I know this person? Because it's been like 3 years since I've seen her in person.
Yeah, and apparently she's like a member at the museum, and she's been in shows at 701, and so I knew her work. And then I just knew that there was this cool person who lived up the road from me, but I didn't realize that it was the same person.
That's so awesome. I love that. One of the things I thought was really cool, because I got to go in there a lot when I was running that time lapse, was I got to see the variety of different folks from like all walks of life that you kind of brought in this volunteer shift. Because yeah, you did have like Flavia Lovatelli, for listeners at home. Great artist. She does a lot of work with paper, a lot of fibrous paper work that is really, really compelling and interesting in its own right, though not who we're here to talk about today. But along with that, I mean, you had high school students, you had grown adults, retired aged adults. I mean, I thought it was really great to see this like wide swath of the community all working together to like one singular goal. Yeah.
And I really wanted to kind of cultivate that atmosphere where people who obviously have some sort of adjacent interaction with the museum because I know about them, but they wouldn't necessarily interact with each other. So, I was asking people, I was like, if you've got kids who can listen to directions and don't mind sitting still and tying knots for 3 hours, like, let me know. Let them come in. Let them do something fun at the museum, and the part-timers are an amazing group of humans. We have had so many amazing, creative young people come through the museum doors as just front desk staff, as just gallery attendants, just seeing this person and I just think, oh, they're security staff, whatever. And then I find out, she's an amazing watercolor artist. Hey, they do this collage. You write poetry. One girl studied Arthurian poetry. Like, it's just such amazing, creative, interesting people. And I knew that they would be really excited to get to be part of this, like behind the scenes, to get to meet someone that they kind of view as a celebrity. And I felt like it would really make them feel like proud, like there's ownership in this exhibit. Like not only are they just standing in the room guarding the artwork, but like they're like, I was a part of this. I hung these things. I got to meet this person. I got to sit here underneath all these flowers and tie things together.
Hey y'all, producer Drew here to fill up your social calendar for September with some exciting CMA programming. On September 8th and the 14th, take a tour and get a new perspective on Amanda McCaver's Bright Little Day Stars with volunteer coordinator and installation assistant Jackie Palmieri. On September 22nd, grab a cocktail and a seat for a panel discussion featuring Carol Souvion, executive producer and director of the Peabody Award-winning and Emmy-nominated PBS series, Craft in America. On September 25th, get your dancing shoes ready for Shea Alexander Presents Live on Boyd Plaza with popular Charlotte-based outfit Reggie Graves and Jazz Theory. You can find out more about these and all of our upcoming programs and events on our website, www.columbiamuseum.org. And now, back to the show.
Yeah, I think you said two things that really stood out to me just now. First of all, I have to say I completely agree. We have an insanely talented staff. This place really does draw a lot of very, very talented folks from the community. It always has, and you're right. The amount of just raw talent that just comes out of the people that work at the front desk or the people that are like as gallery guards, yourself included, is a perfect example. It is amazing to me that over the years, the museum has been able to bring in so many talented people. And I think, people that work in the creative arts, they want to work in creative spaces. So it does kind of make sense. But it never ceases to amaze me. Literally every single new hire I meet has some background with that in the arts in some way, shape, or form. So I always find that really interesting. But the other thing that you mentioned that I really wanted to bring up in more detail was the fact that this was very hands-on. This was every part of the process of this installation was done by hand for the most part. And that goes kind of back to when the pieces themselves were actually created by Amanda beforehand. I mean, she's doing a lot of that work by hand. It's not like she's getting it all fabricated by someone else and then bringing it in. She's making all the weavings and then bringing them in, and y'all are hanging and tying and doing all these things by hand. Can you talk a little bit about the experience of being able to kind of work so intimately with somebody else's pieces like that, and what value there might be in that slow sort of methodical kind of work as opposed to just hanging something up and calling it a day? Whoa.
And actually that is very much a part of Amanda's concept and philosophy for her work in general, but specifically this piece. As everyone's sitting there working, everyone kind of be chit-chatting and we'd be listening to music, and the topics would wander. But one of the volunteers asked her, why did you do your work this way? Why these little pieces? Why are they so detailed? Why are we hanging them one by one? Explain that. And she kept saying things like, it's kind of this idea of community. And they were just speaking about the artwork. They were like, all of these little pieces come together and make this big monumental thing. You've got these little stars that are smaller than the palm of your hand, but it takes up a whole room. Usually when you go into an art gallery, there's several pieces in there. Her work, it's one piece technically, but it's thousands of little pieces. And that idea that her work and also the installation of it requires many small pieces all coming together to make this epic, momentous thing. That's on purpose. She did that on purpose. And everything is even the embroidery, it is a machine embroidery, but it's not like it's programmed. It's not like my 3D printer where once I've made the model and I just hit the button and tell it what to do and I can walk away. She's sitting there with a hoop in her hand, hand spirographing all of these. These are thousands. This took her years. She's like, I would just put on Netflix or a movie and just go to town. And so, just the fact that this entire process has been this it's a very traditional craft. It's this hands-on labor of love. Every piece is touched. Each knot, there's the knot hanging it from the ceiling. There's the knot hanging the piece at the base. Every single piece of this has been gently and meticulously touched by a human. And I think that's it's such a great concept. I love it.
Yeah, I love that part about it too. I mean, I think that to me, the fact that what you're looking at in the gallery is just the culmination of an entire community's worth of work, right? Like you're looking at the weavings and you're looking at how it's all installed and like, ooh, it's so beautiful and it looks like a forest when you're in it and all of that. But what you're really looking at is people's work. I mean, you're looking at the labor and time put in. I mean, this was not a short installation period. How long did this take to put in the gallery?
Just the installation. Originally, we had scheduled it to be from Monday through Friday. It was just going to be a work week, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And we got to Wednesday and I was up on the scissor lift looking around and I'm like, we should be halfway done and we're not. I'm a little worried. The bulk of it, the volunteers were amazing. They really, really were. It got to the point where they were working faster than Amanda and I could keep up with them. So we kind of lit a fire underneath everyone. We're like, all right, we got to pick up the pace. Don't rush and get sloppy, but we got to pick up the pace. And people generously volunteered. Like, if you need me on the weekends, I can come in. So essentially the bulk of it was done by end of day Saturday. But yeah, I mean, Amanda and I started at 9 a.m. We usually didn't leave until 7:30. And we worked through Saturday. And we've still been kind of tweaking it up until Thursday? So what today is? Like up until yesterday, there was still a little bit like, this side's a little thick, this side's a little thin, tweak. But
Jackie's lost all sense of time because she's been living here for the past 2 weeks.
I've lost the ability. Apparently being 15 feet up in the air, like, disorients me from all space, time, whatever.
Let's talk about that, actually. Not the space-time part, but the 15 feet in the air. So you had to use a scissor lift for this. This is your first time operating a scissor lift? Is that right?
No, baby. No.
Okay.
Excusez-moi.
I retract my statement. Please, tell me your experience with scissor lifts and how you gotta incorporate that into the installation of Amanda's work.
I talked to the curatorial staff casually in the past about my interactions with scissor lifts, and then Jackie Adams, when she was proposing that I be involved in this, she goes, "Now you're gonna have to be up on a scissor lift. Are you afraid of heights? Have you ever used a scissor lift before?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, Michael had a scissor lift in his studio." That's how I got to my quote unquote office space, which was a loft that hadn't had a ladder or stairs built to it yet. So like wherever the scissor lift was in the studio, and like, if you've ever worked in a clay studio, there's a lot of obstacles. So I'd have to kind of like gingerly like navigate it over to the loft area. And then I would go up and down with I was technically there to do emails and like digital things. So I'm carrying around a laptop and usually a cup of coffee because I'm me. And so, you just put all the things in the lift and you go up, and then when you want to come down, you can just put all the things in the lift and you go down again. For some reason, they all decided, well, let's just park the scissor lift here. We don't use it for that many other things very often. So this is where it'll live. It'll be parked there. But remain in the up position, even if I'm on the ground. So every day I would come into work and I would kind of like tuck my laptop underneath my arm and like kind of balance my cup of coffee and like one arm climb up this scissor lift to get up to the loft.
For the record, listeners, this was not at the museum. We would not have someone climb a scissor lift.
Yeah.
We ride it up here. For listeners at home, we're assuming that you know what a scissor lift is, but if you don't, it's like a large platform that can raise itself in the air. You've seen them around at construction sites. You've definitely seen them, and it is an important tool here at the museum. The curatorial staff uses one to do all the lighting, a lot of the installation of work. It is like the best staff member you've never met.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we had 3 of them for the installation of this.
Yeah. The museum has a scissor lift. And then we were gonna rent one more, and then we realized that we really needed to be renting 2 and not just the one, so that Amanda could be up in the air using one and I could be up in the air using one, and then all the volunteers were kind of like, I said it felt like fishing, because like I'd drop a line down and all of a sudden people would swarm. Like I've got this little trail of white cards that I've dropped down for people to, as a marker, like, hey, tie this. And all of a sudden people would be like scurrying, and like I'd have this flood of people around me.
So in classic summertime fashion, Jackie chose to go fishing for the last 2 weeks.
Does fishing usually hurt your thumb the way that this did? I just need everybody to know those threads are all put into the ceiling with essentially thumbtacks, and Amanda and I hand put every single one of those thumbtacks in. So I have an interesting callus on the pad of my thumb that I wasn't expecting to have.
Hey, and you can see it right here at the museum. You can see the exhibition. You can see Jackie's thumb.
No.
You can buy her a coffee, and then she'll let you see it.
Yes, I will take offerings of coffee or massage gift certificates.
Just for your thumb, though.
But yeah, my thumb, not even the full hand. Oh my gosh.
So let me ask you this, because I mean, you guys have been working on this for a really long time. I mean, what probably feels like a eternity now, because you just spent all of your time kind of in this like time suck of an installation period. But how does it feel to kind of see it in completion, like to like look at it and see like the culmination of all the work?
Magical, utterly magical. Even just from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, because I'd be up on the lift, up by the ceiling, so it looks completely different. It didn't feel like we were getting much done. It didn't look like it was going to have that much visual impact. And then even just the end of the first day, I came down off of the lift and I was like, whoa, this is so cool. Oh my gosh. Like, if anyone has met me or knows me, like I started kind of just hopping around and wiggling in place because it was so cool. And so like every day when I would come off the lift at the end of the day, it was, the room had transformed just a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. And to finally see it yesterday, where basically everything was hung in both of the galleries, and the lighting, they were still kind of tweaking it, but it was basically done. It was absolutely magical. Like this space that just felt like an empty, chaotic studio for a second, because there were just a million people running. There was tables, there was machinery, there was chairs everywhere, and thread and scissors. To have all of that cleaned up, cleared out, and the lighting just perfect, it was the drama of it is just amazing.
Yeah, it really is. I just got to go in there and take some installation photos for the first time, kind of cleared out and quiet, and really being able to experience that just moment of peace. I mean, it really does remind me of going on a hike. There's like a real feeling that like all of these little pieces just slightly move with like the wind. And as you pass them, you see them move just like leaves do out in the forest. And it just, there is something really special and unique about this that I really want visitors to experience for themselves. And y'all should, because Amanda McCover's Bright Little Day Stars is on view now through October 2nd at the Columbia Museum of Art. Jackie Palmieri. It has been such a pleasure to have you in, and we've really got to have you back. Thank you so much for hanging out in a closet with me during work hours.
Absolutely. Hey, the closet's bigger than I thought it was.
Binder Podcast is a production of the Columbia Museum of Art. Today's episode was hosted, edited, and recorded by me, Drew Barron. Special assistance from Joelle Ryan Cook. For more about Binder, CMA exhibitions, and programs, visit our website, columbiamuseum.org. Till next time.
Don't be offended, but like, you absolutely are like 100% like kid show hosts.
Oh yeah.
I'm
not offended by that.
Voice mannerisms, all of it.
I'm not offended by that.
I'm like, you are the next, like, what's the Blue's Clues? Steve.
Oh my God. You just made my day.